What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. This weekend, Tyson Fury is going to make his return and face off against MMA star Francis Ngannou. All right, this is going to be on ESPN pay-per-view if you're here in the States, and I believe it's going to be on BT Sports if you're watching it out in the UK. All right, but on the undercard, this is the best fight on the undercard. David Adeleye, he's going to be facing off against Fabio Wardley. This is going to be for the British heavyweight title. All right. And I believe Fabio won the British title back when he beat Nate Gorman last year in one of the best fights of the year, in my opinion. I mean, I know it was just a 3-rounder, but it was a really action-packed 3-rounder. I watched it again early this morning as I was doing some film study, okay? But this is the best fight on the card, in my opinion, the best matchup, and I can't wait. And there's a lot of drama leading up to the fight. I mean, these two definitely built the fight. You know what I mean? They did a good job, even with all of the drama that's leading up to this. If you haven't seen it, they got into a little scuffle during one of the earlier press conferences. Okay, they had a meeting. It was a little face-off. It started with a push from David, which led into a little mini brawl between the two camps. And someone from David's camp punched Fabio Wardley in the face, and he suffered like a little cut on his cheek, which I was still able to see when they had their face-off that was released this morning. All right, there was a face-off, a sit-down face-off, where Carl Frampton was like the mediator, and these guys were talking. And to be honest, leading up to this fight, as far as the mental aspect, if you are one of those guys that like to look at that kind of thing, it seems like David has been the aggressor all the way up to this point. Fabio seems like a more chill, calm, professional guy, and he's kind of relaxed. You know what I mean? Whereas David's doing more digging, talking about his character and how he's been chasing him and he's been showing up at these fights and how he wanted to spar him and how Fabio didn't come to spar him. David seems like he wants to fight more. You know what I mean? And if you are looking into that kind of thing, I would say David has the advantage going into the fight. Or you might look at it in a way where this guy might just be acting tough, but really he's nervous, he's scared, he's not as confident as he appears to be. Whatever way you want to look at it, all right? But the fight is this Saturday. Let's talk about the two fighters. Look, not much experience there. I think both fighters haven't proven to be beyond British level. You know, even though Fabio got the better wins, I looked at David's resume. You know, I've seen him fight, but I looked at it. There's no names that I recognize on there. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and act like these fighters are better or anything. No, Fabio definitely has been in there with better fighters leading up to this point. He's pro. He's been pro a little longer, a couple of years longer. He has more professional fights. He's been in there with guys that's been in there with a lot of guys. You know, he's been in there with Nate Gorman. He's been in there with Latte. He's been in there with Coffee. He's been in there with Eric Molina. He's been in there with guys that's been in there with championship level fighters. So when it comes to resume, yes, he has more experience on paper. But the thing is, none of those wins still really prove that you're bigger than British level, you know, and that's not to put you on a little island. It's just to say, like, okay, there's levels to this. Have you proven to be world? Have either one of you beaten anyone that's recognized like as a top heavyweight, no matter where you're fighting, you know, and neither one have them done it, you know, even though Fabio Wardley has the better names, still, all of those fighters you beat, just about all of them have lost when it was time for them to step up. You know, we already know that Nate Gorman, which was probably the best fight or one of the best fights last year, not the best fight, but one of my personal favorite fights, and definitely at least a top 10 fight for me last year, even though it was just a 3-rounder. Nate Gorman, what happened when he stepped up to fight Daniel Dubois? He lost. He got stopped. You know what I mean? So with that being said, it's a good fight. We'll learn a lot about the winner in this fight and the loser. But what I will say is that it still technically wouldn't prove that they're bigger than British level. You know what I mean? Because they're both British fighters And even though this is for the British title, uh, it's a great fight, but we still need to see where we go from there. I mean, even like if we throw Daniel Dubois in the mix here, Daniel Dubois, yes, he lost to Joe Joyce. He lost to Usyk again. You know, he had the second loss to Usyk recently. But as far as British level, I would say that Dubois, I mean, even those losses, one of them got to still see him. And then there's still everybody else at the division. But we'll get there when we get there. But this is a great fight. Um, Definitely one of those ones that had me scratching my head once I started doing film study. I'm gonna be honest, before I did any film study, I thought Fabio Wardley was gonna win. Like I didn't even like really think about it too much. Even though I thought the fight was good, I've seen David fight on undercards before. I wasn't really expecting much. I've been watching Fabio a lot longer. You know what I mean? I've probably been watching him for like 2, 3 years now. And David, I haven't been watching nearly as long, like maybe just like for a year. Um, so I've seen Fabio. I'm familiar with him. You know, I've made videos, I made content about him. I've covered his fights. So it's a little different with him. You know what I mean? But with that being said, let's talk about the fighters. Let's start out with David Adeleye. All right, since I've never covered him on the channel before. I mean, both of these guys are roughly around the same age. David's 26, Fabio's 28. They're roughly around the same height. They're around the same size. You know, it's not too much of that going on here. But two completely different styles. I mean, they're both orthodox fighters. But I think between the two, I would take David as to being a more technically sound fighter, at least up to this point. You know, they both have knocked out everybody but one fighter on their resume. I think there's one decision for between them both. The rest of the wins are all knockouts. All right, but I will say that David seems to me the more technically sound fighter. Up to this point, he seems like he has the better boxing IQ because he's just more patient. He likes to work off the counter a lot more. You know, I think I've seen him fight on his back foot willingly a lot. So I think he just has a little bit more as far as just more fighting a more intelligent fight, being more patient. Neither one of them have gone long rounds in a fight, but I feel like if it were to be a fight that goes the distance, I would expect more from David because I've seen David fight different ways every fight. Whereas Fabio, I think every time I see him fight, and it's not a diss, but I feel like he fights the same kind of fight. He's very aggressive. He's more athletic to me. He's faster than me. He's a little bit more explosive, but he fights as if he wants to hurry up and get the fight over with, which is cool, but he doesn't work towards a knockout. He forces it. You know what I mean? And that could be a disadvantage, you know, and especially for this fight here. So I think David, again, very good fight on the back foot. Defensively, I think David is better. You know, he always has his hands up. Maybe not as athletic, but I think David is faster than what you would expect. He could be pretty explosive, but he does it at times where you're not really expecting it. If he has you hurt, he's good at finishing too. You know what I mean? He can fight a dog fight, but he hasn't fought a dog fight against another dog. So it's a lot of questions here because I don't know how durable he is. I don't know how good he can fight on a high level for longer rounds. I don't know that. I don't know that with Fabio neither. Again, I think one of his weaknesses sometimes I think he doesn't make enough use of his jab. He just doesn't do it enough. I think it's Sokolowski fight. All right, Sokolowski fight. That's the one fight that he went the distance in. And it's a fight that he did not look good in, and you can make an argument that he lost that fight. Sokolowski is a guy, shorter, but knew how to close distance on him, was timing, it was feinting, it was throwing straight shots that was connecting. You know what I mean? And he was countering David at times. I think David, sometimes when he's backed into a corner, he likes to lunge in with an overhand right. And it left him open to get countered with a left hand. You know what I mean? Especially with the amount of feints that Sokolowski was doing. You know, David was biting on the feints a lot in that fight, and sometimes he would just lunge it with a right hand and get clipped with, a counter left hook, right? But the thing is, that was a good amount of fights ago, and I can tell you from just the film study that I did today, he's developed a little bit since then. You know what I mean? Just more weapons, more things in his arsenal, like the uppercut, which I think is gonna be the punch that could be a factor in this fight. Now I can't remember the names of all these guys that he fought, right? Because I wasn't familiar with any of them. But what I could say is that he's definitely developed. He's not only has he improved defensively, but I think he's developed on his angles. I think, like I said, defensively he's better, but only even on the inside. I like a little bit of the head control that I saw. I saw like him framing pretty well. Like I've seen him do things where he looked complete to me. I've seen him go to the body pretty well. Like he fights intelligent. I just don't know what he can do at this level. Again, I don't know how durable he is. Is he chinny or not? I don't know. Can he go to rounds and fight at a high level? I don't know. These are the things I don't know. But between the two, I think he's the more technically sound to me, and I think he's a smarter fighter. But when I think of Fabio Wardley, explosive, quick, powerful, has fought in a dogfight with better fighters. You know what I mean? He's gone to war. He's not the guy that's on his back foot waiting. Not saying he can't fight on the back foot, but I haven't seen him fight on his back foot like that. He's always been a general. But defensively, I think he's very flawed just defensively. And I said this in other fights that I've seen him in. One thing about him is like most of the time his hands are down. And then when he is fighting in the high guard, it's not an active one. You know what I mean? He's not moving his upper body that much. He's not parrying that many shots. And when I seen in fights like the Nate Gorman fight where he was coming in forward in a high guard, Nate was doing everything. He was punching around the guard and landing uppercuts with ease. And this is something that I've seen David develop really, really well in his most recent fights. So Fabio Wardley, even though he stopped Nate Gorman, was taking a lot of damage for that fight. And that's a recent fight. A lot of damage, and Nate, to me, still, even rewatching that fight, I think Nate is the better boxer, but he lost the dogfight. He didn't have the power to bang with Fabio Wardley. And going back to what I said in the beginning of this video when I was talking about the face-offs and the little scuffle they had, yes, up to this point, David has looked like the tough guy. He looks like the aggressor. He looks like he wants to fight more. But on the night of the fight, I'm expecting Wardley to be pushing forward. Wardley's going to be coming forward. Wardley is going to be looking to get into that dogfight because that's what he does. I don't think he's some technical fighter. You know what I mean? I don't think he's just that. I think he's very athletic. And a lot of stuff he get away with because of his speed and how quickly he could be, But from a technical standpoint, he makes a lot of flaws. One flaw that I've said in recent videos that I did or other videos I did in the past is sometimes, like, when he does slip jabs, he'll slip the jab to his right, but he brings his head right back to the center. And I think that's like a basic mistake that he makes, and he doesn't have his hands up. So sometimes when he slips, a lot of these guys can catch him with a right hand because he don't see the right hand coming behind the jab. You know what I mean? Another thing is, too, is, he like to take quick steps, hops in and out when he's getting out of the way of shot. But when he hops out, he tends to hop right back in right away because I think he lacks patience. You know what I mean? He doesn't cautiously work his way in. He hops in. He hops right into the fire. And when he does that, sometimes he's hopping right in. And if you time him right, you could hop right into a right hand, And I just think that sometimes, at least for this fight here, and he's already had step-up fights. But in this fight here, he has to be even more dangerous because he's fighting another puncher. You know what I mean? And he just got to be a little bit more wary, a little bit more cautious on the defensive end because I think he's so antsy. Yeah, he's a nice guy, but when he's in a ring, he's a dog. And this is the thing. If this is a boxing match, all right, if this actually is a boxing match that is going rounds, I can see instances where he's catching a lot of counters as he's coming in. But I can also see him winning a dogfight because we've seen him fight on that level. But at the same time, I think even as a dogfight, he's in danger too because I don't know how tough David really is, or at least not on this level. You know what I mean? It's 50-50 when it comes to a dogfight for me. But as far as a boxing match, I think David is just a little bit more like smarter and responsible, you know? Which goes into another topic. Like, with all this commotion going on into the fight, David, if he is smart, he needs to welcome Wardley into the kind of fight that he likes, you know, and play it smart. Be on the back foot. Let him set the traps. Because I believe that Fabio is going to be fired up on the night of the fight. He's going to want to knock this guy out. I mean, this guy has, somebody from his camp landed a clean punch against him, and it was embarrassing because he actually fell down from it. And it was all over YouTube. It was all over social media. I've seen it. And then on the face-off, Davis is talking about his character and is just basically calling him a coward to his face. I think Fabio is normally fired up, but I think he's going to be super fired up for this fight. And if David is smart, he needs to play into that. All right? But he got to be ready for a dogfight because if the boxing is not working for him and he can't time the right shots, he has to be ready for that kind of fight too. And can he do it? I mean, he looks the part, he talks the part, but can he really do it in the ring? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All right. This is a good fight. I'm expecting a stoppage because of the kind of fight that it is. You know what I mean? Two guys that, are knockout artists, at least up to this point, at least up to this stage. They've both been knockout artists. I don't know if it's a 10 or a 12 round. I'm assuming it's a title, so it should be a 12 rounder. But I'm not expecting it to go long. I do think that at some point it's going to be a dogfight. But I'm leaning towards David. This film study made me feel like even though he looked bad in the Sokolowski fight, I've seen him do things in the more recent fights that he wasn't doing in that fight. I think he's improved. Not saying that Fabio hasn't. And not saying that Fabio might not switch it up. He may switch it up and fight a smarter fight. But based on what I've seen in consistency, David, even with all of those knockouts, I don't feel like he was fighting recklessly in any of those fights. He's still very cautious. And I'll take the cautious boxer puncher, over the super athletic guy that I think lacks defense. You know what I mean? I'm leaning towards David to win this one. It doesn't mean anything. I think Fabio Wardley still beats a lot of people, especially the up and coming guys. But I think David and that uppercut is going to be an issue. And I think at some point, once it gets physical, I think David is going to be doing the seasoned fighter stuff. He's going to be fighting like the seasoned fighter. Again, I mentioned his framing earlier. I mentioned the head control. I think he's going to be leaning, putting his arm around Fabio. I think he's going to be doing things on the inside. I think he's going to be doing the better work on the inside as far as clean punches landed. I just think that with his power and his ability, I think he's going to be smarter, and I think he's going to win, and I think he's going to hurt Fabio. And unlike before, even though it may turn into a dogfight, I think David is going to take it if he plays it smart. All right? Or Fabio might go in there and go in a dogfight and knock this dude out. I don't know. But I'm going to go with David on this one. Again, before I did any film study, I had Worley. But after watching David and pretty much watching at least 6-7 of his fights today, I know they weren't long. I think David's going to win. I know he's the underdog, but I think I'm leaning towards him to win this one, all right? Anyway, I will be here Saturday night for that card. You also got Joseph Parker on the card. You got Arslan Beck on the card. bunch of heavyweight fights leading up to Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou. I was thinking about doing a breakdown for that fight, but I don't even know how to. You know what I mean? It's an MMA fighter against one of the best boxer or heavyweight boxer out there. I don't even know how to really pick that. But anyway, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel again. Smash the like button if you like the content, share the video and all that stuff. Should be a good fight Saturday. I think this is gonna be the best fight on the card Saturday. And I can't wait to see you guys. Peace.